All right, we're going live right now. The time has come. I finally fixed the microphone. All right, I apologize for all those previous live streams that just happened, but I finally fixed it. I didn't have a driver installed, of course, Windows being Windows, and the Mix Pre, which is the amp that I'm using. If you connect it to your computer, you need a driver for the audio to be clear. That's why you guys were, hearing a deep voice. But everything is fixed. We're back to our live schedule. Today's going to be a big one. I just want to say thank you guys for putting up with the little hassles that were just happening before. Welcome everyone back to the chat. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy year. But like I said previously, I'm going to be bringing these live streams back consistently. I'm going to be doing them every single week. Today is going to be the first one. Next week, I'm not going to be doing one just because of the holidays, or maybe I'll do like a surprise drop-in one on the Friday. But today's going to be a good episode because a couple of days ago, I released a best laptops of 2019 video, and I talked about some of the favorite laptops that I reviewed personally over the year. But there were a lot of comments from people asking about specific laptops that I didn't mention in the video. And the reason why those laptops were not in the video was not because I hate them or dislike them or anything like that. It's just because I didn't get a chance to review them. Like the review didn't come in time, or the manufacturer couldn't get me a unit, or I just didn't have time in general. But thank you, everyone. Discord fam is back. Everyone's back in the chat. We got the Discord crew. If you're interested in asking me questions after the live stream, Discord information will be placed in the description down below. But I want to talk about best laptops of 2019 because everybody's preference is a little bit different. Like we have people who just generally want good battery life. We have people who generally want really great performance depending on the specific tasks they're doing. Then there's other people out there who just want a game. And they're going to be gravitating towards those gaming laptops, and they're unsure if they should go for a 15-inch, 17-inch version, or just something that they can carry portably. Now, I'm great. Thank you, everyone. I'm great. For those of you in the chat, don't start asking questions about phones. We're going to be keeping this about laptops first. But the first thing I want to talk about is Ultrabooks. One of the laptops that consistently came up in my previous video was the HP Spectre X360. The reason being is because there were a lot of reviews on it. I reviewed the previous model, which came out like almost a year ago, and it was significantly better than previous generations. Let me bring it up on the screen. But recently, they've updated again, and it's actually winning quite a bit of awards. And the reason why it's winning quite a bit of awards is because they've polished it. They've made it significantly better. They've improved the trackpad, which has always been something that HP's been notoriously bad at doing. Terrible touchpads on the majority of their previous devices. But I find that HP every single year is improving the little things that people complain about a lot. And that's always been the trackpad. The X360 is special because you can buy this in a 15-inch version, get a dedicated GPU, have a fairly thin and light form factor, and then go ahead and travel with it. But the reason why it won this year is because they refined the bezels, they improved the trackpad, they gave it good battery life, and it became more of a premium design. But I didn't get to review it. And that was kind of unfortunate because that was one of the laptops that I really wanted to review because they just came out with the 10th gen processors. I wanted to have it in hand. I wanted to review for you guys. So maybe I'll still do something with it. It's just going to be late. It's probably not going to be out until the beginning of 2020. Okay, so I want to talk about budget gaming laptops. The one I suggested in the best 2019 video was the Acer Nitro 5. Now, I'm not saying this is the best budget laptop you could buy. Like, it's not the best spec laptop you can buy. But for me, the reason why I found it to be so important was because of its price to performance ratio. Yes, the cooling solution is still not perfect, but it's because of that price point. It's because of how clean the laptop is in terms of design. They improved the performance or the thermals compared to the previous year. Even though they didn't change much internally, they just improved it using fan curves, using power throttling to make it a better machine. And when you combine that with the price point, I thought it would have been a good solution for a lot of people. Now, there's other companies making good budget laptops. Like MSI has a good selection of budget laptops. But the reason why I didn't suggest the MSI version this year is because I still find the build quality to be slightly worse than what Acer's offering in the budget category. Asus has some good options too, but I didn't review a lot of their budget laptops. The only one I reviewed was the Asus TUF gaming laptop. And this was a laptop that had the AMD Ryzen processor. The problem though is that the AMD Ryzen processor, as good as it is for this year, is still not up to what Intel's doing. Intel processors are still king when it comes to laptops. That'll probably change in the near future, but in 2019, if you're buying a laptop, you're better off going with Intel. So one person says, dude, I just bought a ThinkPad X1 Extreme Gen 2 and I noticed some coil noise issue. Is it normal for this model or should I ask for a refund? Listen, most laptops with a dedicated GPU and a thin form factor is going to have a little bit of coil whine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, if you think about it realistically, if you have a little bit of coil whine and you compare it to, let's say, a laptop that's thick with loud fans and it's a gaming laptop, what would you rather have? A little bit of coil whine, which is kind of noticeable, or would you rather have these big bulky fans that completely just envelop the sound experience, causing you to like have to use headphones, right? I'd personally rather have a little bit of coil whine, and you're going to notice it on a lot of laptops. So I probably wouldn't ask for a refund. If it's bothering you that much, maybe you can ask to swap it out for a different model. But even if you buy like the Dell XPS 15 or the ZenBook Pro, you might have a little bit of coil whine. Like I'm not that sensitive to it, so it's never bothered me. So I never really mention it in my reviews. Like if it's significant to the point where it's really loud, I'll mention it, but it's nothing compared to like how loud fans can go. So that was the Acer Nitro 5. That's why I chose it over the other budget gaming laptops. Then it came to like mid-range gaming laptops, and we usually suggest the Acer Predator Helios 300. That's usually like a community favorite. Not because it's the best mid-range gaming laptop you can buy. Like personally, I think the Y740 or the Y540 is a better mid-range gaming laptop. I just think it looks better. I think it appeals to a lot more people. But the reason why I suggest the Helios 300 is because of its price. Like, this is a laptop that's consistently being marketed for under $1,000. And they've improved the performance and thermals compared to the previous generation, making it a very compelling buy. But if you don't mind spending a little bit more money, you can take a look at something like the Y540 or the Y740 because I find them to be much more refined products. I also like the fact that the Y540 or Y740, whatever one you decide to choose, has a better port setup. Like they've placed the I/O on the back of the device, allowing you for like a cleaner desk setup. Like that, I prefer. It just looks cleaner when you're using it. But the reason why the Helios continuously gets chosen every single year, oh my God, I get used to these cameras, every single year is because of its price. It's a laptop that consistently comes out under $1,000. It's heavily discounted on Black Friday or during the holiday seasons. So I have no problems recommending it to people because it's like a good package for the price. Is it the best mid-range gaming laptop? Obviously not. There's other ones out there, but I think for the price, that's where you want to go. Casual Techie says, what's your lap choice for editing and which do you recommend for editing and light gaming? So last year, my laptop of choice was the Lenovo X1 Extreme Gen 1. This year, I've been kind of dipping my feet into the MacBook Pro 16. I actually bought my first Mac ever. I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. It just seems to be like an Apple year, and I wanted to give it a chance because I'm a really heavy hardcore PC user. I have an iPhone, but like I've never really used a MacBook Pro unless it was for like work in previous jobs, but I've never bought one for myself. So if you're a content creator, my laptop of choice would be MacBook Pro 16, or if you want to stick with Windows, the Lenovo X1 Extreme Gen 2. So one person is saying the volume's too low. I'm going to up it just a little bit so you guys can hear just a tiny bit. That should help out a little bit. Uh-oh. Did I just close the stream? No. Oh, crap. Nope, we're still good. Okay. So, oh man, what happened here? No, we're still good. So yeah, so the X1 Extreme Gen 2 and the MacBook Pro 16 would be my two laptops of choice for content creation. Now, if you want to do light gaming, there we go. Now, if you want to do light gaming, my suggestion is picking up something with a dedicated GPU. So you're going to start gravitating towards like the Razer Blade 15, which is a great option if you want to do content creation and light gaming. Or if you want to be really special, grab something like the Razer Blade Pro 17. It's a bit heavier. I don't know if you want to carry that every day, but you can get it with a 4K display. And then when you have that 4K display, it also comes with a 120 hertz refresh rate. That's a big deal. Think about it. Think about this as a content creator, okay? You're sitting down, you have a 4K display on a 17-inch panel, you have a lot of screen real estate. Because the resolution is so pixel dense, you just have a lot more space to work with. Then all of a sudden, you're feeling a little frivolous. You decide you want to do a little bit of gaming. You drop down the settings to QHD or 1080p. You can still take advantage of the 120 hertz just because your panel supports it, and you get to game. That is the best of both worlds. Now, one thing I don't understand, though, is why we don't have more QHD gaming laptops. Like, think about that. QHD would be the perfect place to be right now in 2019 and going into 2020, because QHD is still pixel dense enough to do content creation or design work, whatever you want, but it's also perfect to push that GPU for a better, resolution and game at the same time. I kind of wish we had more QHD displays. In fact, if you think about that too, Apple's kind of the only company that's really doing it with the 16:10 aspect ratio, but MacBook Pros or Macs in general are not really great gaming laptops. So I'd like to see more Windows PCs incorporating that aspect ratio. Totally got off track here, but one more person says, I want a laptop for school, university, for programming. I want to go with the Mac 16, but never used a Mac laptop. I use just Windows. What do you think? So that's a great question. If you're predominantly in the Windows ecosystem, like I've always been in the Windows ecosystem, I still am. All my desktop computers are Windows, but I've just bought a Mac. So I'm probably the perfect example for you. Transitioning from Windows to Mac is not hard at all. There's a lot of things you're going to like better about that Mac in terms of the operating system that you'll like better over the Windows, especially if you have other devices that can connect to it. I just find like little things to be smoother. Like if you want to record the screen, it's a lot easier to do on the Mac. You can do it with Windows. You can use the Xbox Control or Record Studio or whatever it's called, but the pixel quality is not as good as QuickTime, which is what Mac uses. And I also find it's not as consistent. Like you can literally record anything on your screen using QuickTime on the Mac. Whereas the Xbox is a little bit more finicky. Like you have to have a tab open, you have to have a certain application open. If you want to record the desktop, it's not as easy to do. So don't be afraid to switch to Mac if you want to try it. The transition is very easy, but yeah, you won't have any problems. And the MacBook Pro 16 is a great laptop. Okay, totally pivoted from what I was talking about. So we spoke about budget laptops, why I chose the Acer Nitro 5. We spoke about the mid-range gaming laptops, which was the Acer Predator Helios 300. I said it was the best bang for your buck, considering what's out there, but I said there's better mid-range gaming laptops like the Y740, for example, or even the HP Omen in some ways is a slightly better laptop, especially with the late version that came out at the end of 2019. They really improved the thermals compared to the first iteration in 2019. So if you're, again, going off topic here, but if you're thinking about buying an HP Omen 15, make sure you get the later version of the Omen 15 because the first version that came out in 2019 was better than the previous year, but thermals were still not that great. Okay, now we're moving from, so we talked about mid-range, now we're moving into premium gaming. So premium gaming, Asus Zephyrus S Ultra Slim is what I chose. Some people were a little bit upset because I didn't choose the Razer Blade 15. Look, I chose the Blade 15 the year before. It's a great laptop. It'd be my second pick for 15-inch gaming laptops. But the Zephyrus, as funky as the design was, it was just such a beautiful piece of hardware. It was different. I mean, some people might not like, I'll even pull it up on the screen for you guys. Some people might not like the keyboard at the bottom of the base, and I get it. It's kind of awkward, especially if you're using it on your lap, but Asus nailed cooling on the CPU. Like some of the best CPU cooling I've ever seen on a laptop for such a thin product. Like look at this thing. It's such a cool design. I know it's not the most practical, but when you take into consideration the kind of thermal performance you get on the CPU, plus you pair that with a full-size RTX 2070, like full size, not the Max Q stuff, full-size RTX 2070, I felt it earned a place as one of the best 15-inch gaming laptops you can buy. Now, some of you might say, Matt, if it earned 15-inch, why not talk about the 17-inch version of the Zephyrus S? And to be quite honest, the reason being is because I fell in love with the Razer Blade Pro 17. It was just that whole experience of having the SD card slot, the 4K display, still being fast enough for high refresh gaming. Even though it wasn't 144 hertz, it was still 120. And I think having the ability to take advantage of both of those worlds earned its place as the #1 17-inch gaming laptop of 2019. So that was my reasoning behind the Pro 17. So next question. So one person says, is Thunderbolt 3 really important to you? It depends on the person. To me personally, not so much, but I'm an odd case scenario. Other people, it might be. Like, depending on what type of stuff you're hooking it up to your computer, like are you going to hook up 10 gigabit Ethernet, you're going to want Thunderbolt 3. Not so much for eGPUs, because let's face it, only a very small percentage of people are using eGPUs connected to their computer. So when you buy a laptop and then you buy an eGPU, you end up paying so much money that it just makes more sense to buy a more expensive laptop or even a desktop and a laptop with good battery life. So Thunderbolt 3 is important, but it depends on the person, depends on the use case, and depends on exactly what you're hooking up to it. If you're just hooking up monitors and a mouse and a fast drive, you don't need it. You really don't. But if you're hooking up something that needs to take advantage of that bandwidth, like 10 gigabit Ethernet, or even an eGPU, then yeah, having Thunderbolt 3 is super important. So we talked about budget gaming, premium, mid-range. Now we're going to move over to Ultrabooks. And this is a very tough category because this is a market that is so saturated with so many competitors offering different experiences. And there's so many good Ultrabooks. Like what did I choose for the best Ultrabook? I chose the Surface Laptop 3, which is what I have here. And I know for a fact there's a lot of reasons people wouldn't want the Surface Laptop 3. Like you can make so many arguments against it. Like you could say, hey, Matt, Surface Laptop 3, there's no ports. There's only 3, okay? It's a portless laptop. You know, you only have USB Type-C. It's not Thunderbolt 3. What am I going to do with that? And I get it. For a lot of people, it might not be attractive, but I don't know, like for a Windows machine with this type of quality, let me see if I can give you guys, here it is. For a Windows machine with this type of quality and precision and care, and the fact that you pair it with a 3:2 aspect ratio, which is something like people want on their laptops when they're doing productivity. They want a 3:2 aspect ratio. Like if you're typing a document or just even, I don't know, browsing the internet, it just feels so much more natural. Like you really have to try it for yourself. Like if you were to place a 16:9 Ultrabook, 14 inches, which is bigger than the 13.5-inch display on the Surface Laptop 3 beside it, the Surface Laptop 3 13-inch is still going to feel bigger. You're going to look at it and feel a bit too claustrophobic on the 14-inch display, then look at the 3:2 aspect ratio on the Surface Laptop 3 and be like, this is awesome. I want to work on this. I feel not as claustrophobic. You know, I want to pound out some PowerPoint presentations. Okay, maybe not. Let's not go that far, but it'll feel a lot more natural to you. So that's one of the reasons. There's just not a lot of 3:2 aspect ratio laptops on the market. There's the Huawei MateBook X Pro, which I gave an award to in 2018. The reason why I didn't give it an award in 2019 is because, one, it's hard to find right now for a lot of people just because of all the trade issues. I know you can buy it off the MicroStore again. That's resumed. But even the other one, the MateBook 14, which is like the same laptop but cheaper, hard to find as well. And because recently Microsoft was having all these great deals on it, especially over the Black Friday holidays, I just felt like this was a perfect time to say, listen, Surface Laptop 3, good battery life. You can upgrade the drives now. It's a bit easier to repair. Sure, you're not getting the best port situation in the world, but you're getting this awesome 3:2 aspect ratio, which a lot of people are going to want to take advantage of. So that was my reasoning behind the Surface Laptop 3. The second choice, and this is for Mac users, would be the MacBook Pro 13. A lot of people would tell you to gravitate towards the Air because it's cheaper and you can find it for like $800. But here's the thing about the MacBook Air. It's too slow. It is very, very slow. Like you need to be a grandmother to really appreciate the MacBook Air because even if you're using it on a daily basis, it bogs down. Like it really does. You have too many Chrome tabs open. You have Chrome open, for example, or even Safari, and let's say you have Discord and another application. It struggles. It starts to struggles. It starts to struggles. I can't even speak English today. It starts to struggle. So I think if you're going to enter the Mac territory, unless you're doing grandma-related type work, like just, I don't know, browsing recipes, you're better off moving to the MacBook Pro 13. Like save up a little bit more, get the i5 MacBook Pro 13 instead of the MacBook Air. 8 gigabytes of RAM is fine. If you want 16 to future-proof it, I recommend it. 256 or 512 gigabyte SSD, more than plenty. And I also think it's a great laptop for developers. Like I've actually benched the MacBook Pro 13 against other PC-related laptops, and it benches really well. And you have to understand too, some developers, they need best of both worlds. Like they need to be able to dabble into Unix, they need to be able to use Xcode in Mac OS, and they need to have like everything. And if you have a Windows laptop, you can't do any Xcode development because it's Mac specific. Now, if you don't need a MacBook Pro and you're a developer, you don't need a crazy machine. Like I've talked to a lot of developers, and most of their compile times are anywhere from like 30 to a minute, sometimes 10 minutes if they're more on the high end. But most developers don't need a crazy machine. 4 cores, fine, totally fine. You don't need a dedicated GPU because most of the compiling tests that are done when you're developing is all CPU based. So MacBook Pro 13 is a great option. Surface Laptop 3 is a great option. Any Ultrabook that has good thermals, good battery life, and can support an IDE. Did I say it right? Is it IDE? Yeah, IDE. Anyway, support the proper applications to do your code is fine. Now, some developers will need more Linux-based operating systems, and there's some great options from Dell. Like you can buy certain Linux distros pre-installed on certain XPS models, and same with Lenovo. There's that option as well. But you don't need anything crazy. 4 to 6 cores, you're fine. So that was Ultrabooks. So it was Surface Laptop 3, MacBook Pro 13, and then as the budget pick, I talked about the Acer Swift 3. Now, the Acer Swift 3 is not a beautiful laptop. Like when you look at it, this is something you don't want to show your girlfriend. Like she's going to be looking at him like, what is this? You know? You're probably not going to get laid tonight, buddy, with this laptop in your lap. But the beauty about the Surface Laptop 3 is its price. Like if you go on Amazon.com right now, you can buy this anytime for around $500. And what you're getting from it is a laptop that's future-proof. And I'll explain why. So right now you can pick one up this is an i7, so this is a little bit more expensive, but you can get an i5 for even cheaper. But this laptop with an i7 855U with a 256 gigabyte NVMe drive, that's not a regular SSD, even though it says SSD, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and all the ports for school or business or whatever type of, environment you're in, this will last you because you can open this up 6 months down the road, get rid of the 8 gigabytes of RAM, put in 32 if you really want to, overkill. I wouldn't go with more than 16. You can swap out the hard drive. You basically have access to everything. And this laptop that cost you $600, I guarantee will last you 4 to 5 years, unless there's some sort of like quality control issue. But if nothing goes wrong from a quality control experience, this laptop will last you 4 to 5 years, I promise. And all that expandability will give you that option. All right, so that's the Acer 3. That's why I chose that over everything else. So that's Ultrabooks. Then the next category was Performance Ultrabooks. This is probably what I'm mostly excited about. Performance Ultrabooks was defined by the Dell XPS 15. The Dell XPS 15 came out a while back, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it didn't really define its own category until I'd say, I don't know, when did I start YouTube? 2013? No, 2015, 2014. Anyways, maybe 5 years ago. That's like the Dell XPS 15 was stuttering today. The Dell XPS 15 was in its own category. It was like one of the only 15-inch laptops that was fairly light, had a dedicated GPU. You could travel with it, still do content creation or whatever type of work you do, and not feel like you're using a regular Ultrabook. Like you had the performance to back it up. Now the market is flooded, you know? Back then, it was the MacBook Pro 15 and the Dell XPS 15. Now there's tons of competitors. The Lenovo X1 Gen 2, which is the one I constantly recommend. Asus has the ZenBook Pro. MSI has their own versions of their laptop now. But the problem is that performance Ultrabook category has expanded significantly this year. They've gone from like your typical Dell XPSs into a creator niche. Like every single Windows manufacturer is releasing these creator laptops. Now, some of them are doing a good job of releasing them. Others are just rebranding their gaming laptops. Like, for example, I reviewed the Acer Concept D on my channel, which is a creator's laptop from Acer. It's all white. It's a beautiful looking laptop. But the problem is it's a rebranded Acer Triton 500. That's what it is. At the end of the day, it was a rebranded Acer Triton 500. So you ask yourself, what kind of engineering is put into this product to make it a creator's edition? Did they add an SD card slot for those that wanted it? Did they change the GPU to maybe have quadro options? Did they change the display? Did they improve the keyboard to make it more significant for creators? What did they do specifically to make this a creator's product? Some of them did a great job. Others kind of just, turned their gaming laptops and called it a creator by giving it a paint job. Now, this was great because it had a very color accurate 4K display, and I loved it. And the keyboard was improved. It didn't have that gaming type of feel compared to like the Triton 500. But it still wasn't a brand new product in the Acer lineup. It was more of a revamp. And they're not the only one guilty of doing this. Like Razer's doing it with the Creator Studio. Gigabyte's doing it with their Aero lineup. The list goes on. I want to see them do that, but I want them to really focus on what creators want. They need to put in that SD card slot. Okay, maybe they don't have to put in the SD card slot. SD card slot's always my complaint. I'll probably get a million comments of people saying, Matt, enough is enough about the SD card slot. Let's move on, okay? But I really wish they just really focused on that specific thing. So I'm hoping in 2020, we're still going to see lots of creator laptops, but really focused for creators, not just revamps of their gaming counterparts. So that was Performance Ultrabooks. It's kind of branching off now. The creator laptops, which usually net like powerful RTX 2070s or 2080s, which you can get with like the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo, the dual screen. HP has one. Tons of companies have them. But as soon as you move from like the Performance Ultrabook to the creator laptops, you get more powerful GPUs, but the price point skyrockets and the laptops get a little bit heavier. So maybe in 2020, when I do my laptop awards at the end of the year, what I'll do is I'll have another category. I'll have Performance Ultrabooks, and then I'll have creator laptops. But then they might start overlapping, or maybe I'll just combine them together. So that was creator laptops. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about for best laptops of 2019. I wanted to give you the process, the thought behind why I chose what laptop for my awards. 2020, I hope to review even more laptops to give more variety and to make sure that like when you guys leave comments on the channel, you're not like, hey, why didn't you review this? Why didn't you review that? I want to be able to cover everything. So I'm going to take a couple of questions and then we're going to move into the next topic. We need the Triton 700 with the 17-inch screen. Try using throttle stop disable turbo and in Mac OS. Okay, so he's bringing up throttle stop, which is a program that allows you to undervolt your CPUs. The problem with MacBooks in general is that you can't undervolt the CPUs. Mac OS does not let you. Whereas with Windows, you can do that using the Intel Extreme utility, throttle stop like he suggested, the list goes on. Now, I don't think undervolting should have to be done, okay? Like, I think if you buy a laptop, thermal performance should be at its best the moment you turn it on. Like, you shouldn't have to think about it. Like, you shouldn't have to feel like you need to go into your laptop settings, your BIOS, or download a piece of software to undervolt the CPU. Like, that shouldn't even be on your mind. Like, it just shouldn't. Like, it should just work. But, unfortunately, laptop vendors are still not doing the most perfect job with thermal improvements. It's tough. It's not easy to have a laptop that's cooled perfectly. Like, it's just not. These things are very thin. So a lot of people are doing the undervolting process, which lowers the amount of power the CPU gets, which reduces the amount of heat. And when you reduce the amount of heat, it means the CPU can clock higher. So let's say a regular laptop was running at 3.3 gigahertz under full load. It'll now run at 3.6 if you undervolt it, because it's producing the same amount of heat, but getting less power, but pushing more, if that makes any sense. So that's what undervolting is. So some companies are undervolting their CPUs straight out of the factory, which is like a Band-Aid fix. Others are not. They're just fixing in thermals inside and giving you like good laptops. And other people are just doing it themselves. So one person says, I'm going to buy the MacBook Pro 16, I'm assuming, in May or June. Do you think Apple's going to release something new or even with more options? What do you think? Okay, so MacBook Pro next year. I don't think they're going to redesign the MacBook Pro 16 next year. You're going to get the same form factor. It's still going to be 16 inches. It's going to be the same design, same ports. The only things you'll see in the updated MacBook Pro 16, at least, I don't know, based on rumors, based on my opinion, is you're going to get a different type of display. From what I'm hearing, they're not going to go with OLED. They're going to go with micro LED. Now, this could be far-fetched. Maybe they'll do OLED first, and then sometime in the future, end of 2019 or end of 2020 or 2021, switch to micro LED. But you can expect them to use a different type of display technology. We just don't know if it's going to be micro LED or OLED, but a lot of the rumors indicate micro LED. Now, should you wait for it? I don't think so. I think the MacBook Pro 16 in general is probably Apple's best laptop in the last 6 years. There's no reason not to buy it. Like, there's really no reason. Intel's next generation of chips are still on an older form factor, so you're not going to see huge performance gains anyways. So even if you buy it in May or June, it's not like you're going to have a huge performance increase with the updated MacBook Pro coming out in 2016. Now, if you're buying a MacBook Pro 13, you might want to wait, because they might release a 14-inch version of it, because they might do the same sort of idea they did with the 16. Reduce the bezel size, give you a bigger display, bigger battery, better speakers, the list goes on. That's the only thing I'd probably say wait, is if you're sticking to the MacBook Pro 13. Okay, questions. Is it a good time to buy the mid-2019 Razer Blade 15? It's $300 off now. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a deal, anytime from Black Friday to the end of the year is the best time to buy a laptop, because that's when all these companies are trying to get rid of inventory, discount it, and then announce new products, usually at CES, which is going to happen in the next couple of weeks, next few weeks. And then they'll have a spring push. In the spring of 2020, you'll see all the laptops they announced at CES come out into the market. So if you're looking for a good deal, now is the time to buy. Right now. Today. Why? Go buy it. Seriously. Right now is the time to buy. Next question comes from, what about the Acer Nitro 5 AMD version? So again, kind of like the Asus TUF laptop, AMD processor, 3000 series. It's not a bad processor. It's just, it doesn't compare to the Intel version. If you're on a tight budget, it's worth picking up. Like, you're still going to be able to game comfortably with settings set to medium to high, assuming you're buying with the GTX 1650. Try to avoid the RX 560 just because the 1650 offers better performance. Now, if you do buy an AMD gaming laptop, make sure it comes with dual channel memory. For those of you unfamiliar with dual channel memory, it just basically means there's 2 sticks inside of the laptop. AMD, for some reason, really can take advantage of dual channel memory, and you'll see a performance increase in the games you play if you're using 2 sticks instead of 1. So just a pro tip there. So one person says, very informative, gotta go, but I'll be sure to replay this stream at the office later. Question, will you consider doing merch at some point? Yes. Thank you, Kraken. I will be doing merch at some point. I don't know when. I just want it to be special. I don't want to just do like a t-shirt. I don't want to just be the guy that offers the typical stuff that everybody's doing. I want something special for you guys. I mean, like, you guys are the community. I want you guys to feel like you're part of it. I'm doing that with the Discord server. I try to talk to you guys as much as possible. I'm very active on my Discord server. So if you ever need to get a hold of me, I'm always there, or I try to always be there. But usually I'm pretty helpful, and I try to be. So yes, eventually there will be merch. I just don't know what I'm going to do yet. So that was my explanation of the MacBook Pro. So one person is saying, hey, I'm a filmmaker and I need a laptop for film editing And I'm thinking about the MSI P65 Creator Series, particularly with the RTX 2060. It looks like a pretty good deal. What do you think? Okay, so I reviewed the MSI P65 a couple of years ago or a year ago. I didn't review this year's, but I thought it was a great laptop. Like, it's a good laptop. I still think the build quality is not as good as some other competing products. Like, I still think MSI really needs to work on its build quality, but it was one of their better laptops. Like, I actually could recommend the P65. I think my issue at the time when I reviewed it, I don't know if things have changed now. Let's check. Let's check right now, actually. I think at the time when I reviewed it, there wasn't any higher displays with higher pixel density. Like, there's no 4K or QHD displays. And they were pushing this laptop towards creators at the time. And I find that hard to do when you're not using a laptop that has a better display. Like, you're still using a 1080p display with 144 hertz, which made no sense. Like, that's a gaming display. So anyways, I'm on their website right now. Let's take a look. I don't know if there's updated versions of this, but we have, yeah, see, I don't know. There probably is. So anyways, my issue was with it didn't have the SD card slot and the display options were limited. You could only get it in 1080p at the time, but that might have changed as of now. Like, it might be a bit different. Like I said, it was a fine laptop. Build quality wasn't the best, but if you can get a good deal on it, I think you're going to enjoy it. Just if, I don't know if they have a version with a better display at the moment, because I find the 1080p display to be okay, but I don't know, I prefer a more pixel dense display because on a 15-inch display with that 16:9 aspect ratio, I really like to increase or decrease the text size so it's still sharp so that I can see more on the screen, which is hard to do with a 1080p display. It just looks really, really weird. Okay. What about the Lenovo IdeaPad S740? Haven't reviewed it, so I can't comment on it. What do you think about the Ryzen 5 3500U? Compared to the i5 8265U? Okay, so great question. This is going to talk about Ryzen versus Intel, and this is really... So here's the thing. Not a lot of people. When the Microsoft Surface Laptop 15 was announced, it was announced with an AMD processor. And when it was first announced, I was very excited. I thought because Microsoft was partnering with AMD, we were going to see something very special. But what happened was the AMD processor inside of there was disappointing. Not because it's a bad processor. A lot of it has to do with software. A lot of the software that's created for these AMD processors is not optimized yet. So it was consistently losing out to Intel. And it was hard for me to recommend the AMD version because the performance was worse. The battery life was worse. It was actually more expensive than the business Intel version at one point, which I found kind of weird. And you couldn't do simple things like 4K video, watching it would chug. Exporting a file would chug. And that's mostly to do because there was no Intel QuickSync with the AMD chips. So it just made a lot more sense for people to buy the Intel version. But it was good that they did this because it's not too often we get to see two of the same laptops using two different versions of processors. It doesn't happen too often. So it was a great way for us tech reviewers to benchmark them, to see like how these laptops perform using the exact same hardware, same design, but the only difference is being the CPUs and the GPUs, because the AMD processor uses the Vega AP or whatever. It was great to see that. And what we came up with was that AMD's getting better, but they're still not there in the mobile market. They're killing it with desktops. Like, if anybody asks me to build a computer today, I automatically say Ryzen processors. But when it comes to laptops, if you have the budget for it, I still say go with Intel. Even if you have to pay a little bit more money, you're just going to get all the features. You can take advantage of the DDR4X RAM, which will give you better battery life, the Wi-Fi 6, the list goes on. All right, totally getting off topic again. One more question, then I'm going to switch over to some of the other topics for today. Battery from 57 watt hours to 76 watt hours, or is it too much work? So Y740 is a gaming laptop. If you're doing regular productivity, you will notice a big advantage in your battery life. But if you're using your battery to game, it doesn't matter how big your battery is, you're just not going to get any battery life, period. And because it's a Windows laptop, your performance is going to be significantly reduced if you're gaming on battery. Because the GPU in these gaming laptops are from NVIDIA, because they're drawing so much power, because they're so powerful, your laptop cannot perform at its fullest on battery. It's just not possible for these gaming laptops when they're not plugged into a wall. If NVIDIA or Intel allowed the GPU to draw that much power on the battery, that laptop would turn into like a smoking disaster. It would just stop working. It would just smoke right in front of you, or your battery would die in like 2 seconds, and it'd be like a hot piece of coal. So if you're trying to game on battery, you're going to see a significant drop in performance, and you're just not going to get good frame rates. So never game on battery. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, if you're talking about productivity going from the 57 to 76, you're going to get a nice increase in battery life, especially if you lower the display brightness to 25%. Maybe put it on better battery mode. You'll get some pretty good battery life. As you said, if you want to buy a Mac 16, I should buy it. But if I want a Mac like Mac Pro 16, what? Shahu, I think you're a little confused. There's only one Mac Pro that's 16 inches, and that's the MacBook Pro. No. Do you recommend Optane memory over less RAM? I recommend using more RAM. What? Okay, so there is a 4K version of the MSI P65. That's great to hear. If you can get a good deal on it, snag it. You'll be happy with it. Just, I think if I remember correctly, I could be totally wrong. I think if you're upgrading RAM in the P65, you have to flip the motherboard. I don't think the RAM is on it as soon as you open it up. You have to flip the motherboard in order to get to it. So that's one thing to consider if you don't want to like really get into the nits of it if you ever have to upgrade your laptop. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is what to expect at CES 2020 this year for laptops. CES 2020, I think, is not going to be a big year for laptops. My gut feeling is we're going to see the same GPUs that we're used to seeing right now. The only difference is we might, and this is just a gut feeling, I don't know anything, no one's telling me anything, we might see like RTX 2070 Max-Q Supers, for example. So RTX 2060 Super Max-Q, RTX 2070 Super Max-Q. So we'll have like slightly better performance when it comes to GPUs on the NVIDIA side of things. But I don't think we're going to see any crazy upgrades. That like big year we had where we went from like Maxwell architecture to Pascal architecture is not coming in 2020. It's going to have to probably be another couple of years before that happens. And to be quite honest, the GPUs we have now are pretty powerful. Like I'm amazed how powerful they've gotten in laptops and still being able to fit them in laptops that thin and keeping them cool. It's crazy how powerful these GPUs are, and the GPUs run a lot cooler than the CPUs. So we're not going to see new GPUs. If anything, we'll see super versions of the NVIDIA. We're going to see more mobile chips coming out from NVIDIA, 5500 series, maybe different variants of it. So we'll have some competition there, but I still think NVIDIA is going to be king in the laptop market for GPU performance, especially with gaming. Content creation is a different thing. Each platform, Windows or Mac, does it differently. You find that with worse hardware, or hardware when you benchmark it, because it's so well optimized, it sometimes performs better on a Mac than it does on a PC with certain applications, not everything. The other thing we're going to see is refinements. So we're going to see a lot more OLED displays. We might see some micro LED laptops. We're going to see better battery life because of improvements from Intel, more DDR4X RAM, laptops being incorporated. We're going to see 5G. Trust me when I say this, there's going to be a lot of manufacturers coming out and saying, hey, we have one of the first 5G laptops. You just throw your SIM card in here, you're going to have 5G wherever you go. And that's going to be great for the future, but let's face it, even 5G in 2020, no one's really going to care because the architecture, the infrastructure is not going to be implemented yet. Like it's going to take a lot more than 2020. I honestly don't think any of us are going to be using 5G on a regular basis for at least another 3 to 5 years. That's just my gut feeling. Especially in Canada, where they're still arguing over who's going to build out the networks. I know there's some testing going on with Huawei and Ericsson, but that might change because of what's going on with the trade deal and all that stuff. US is different. They're already implementing it. Verizon has some infrastructure going on, but you have to be like directly line in sight. You have to be facing the towers in order to take advantage of the 5G. So you'll see a lot of thin laptops, Ultrabooks coming out onto the market with 5G capability. Pretty cool, but no one's really going to care. And I don't even think business executives will buy it because of 5G, just because they can't take advantage of it. The next thing in CS 2020 for laptops you're going to see is hopefully, and I'm crossing my fingers for this, is a glimpse of Ryzen 4000, okay? Ryzen 4000 will be based off the Zen 2 Plus, either Zen 2 or Zen 2 Plus architecture of the current Ryzen 3000 desktop CPUs. That's a big deal because I think it's going to get AMD so close to Intel in terms of mobile performance that the gap is going to be so small. This year, there's still a big gap, but I think we're going to see a smaller gap in 2020. So that's going to be interesting. Here we go. AMD boss reveals new Ryzen 4000 mobile APU set for early 2020. So AMD head honcho Lisa Su has revealed that the company is working on new Ryzen 4000 series mobile processors set to go market in early 2020. Okay, this was reviewed in an interview between VentureBeat and AMD this quarter, actually, or last quarter, during a call. So as I mentioned, those chips will be based on the Zen 2 architecture, and they're going to be using the existing 7 nanometer tech. Like, that's crazy. Intel is still pushing out 14 nanometer tech. Yes, I know they have some U-series processors that's utilizing 10 nanometer, but AMD is like, forget it. We're going straight to 7 nanometers. That's where we want to be in life. So I'm expecting some huge performance results. I'm expecting some better battery life, and I'm expecting some great competition. So this is going to be a very interesting year for laptop CPUs, but not so much laptop GPUs. Okay, what else we're going to see? Micro LED displays, more OLED. We're going to see thinner bezels, thinner laptops. I think every manufacturer is going to be really pushing thin this year. Like, it's always been there in the background. Like, we've already seen some news from LG. They're releasing the LG Gram. They're updating it. Nothing extraordinary about it, just basically moving towards the 10th gen processors, but nothing earth-shattering in that regard. So very boring news, at least from what I'm understanding, coming out of CES. A lot of refinements. I think we're going to see a lot better display technology. We're going to see a lot more all-in-one computers. I think these PC manufacturers want to put a big focus on making beautiful hardware just because they have the engineering to do so now. So you're going to see like crazy, thin, all-in-one designs with like beefy CPUs and GPUs incorporated. Hopefully the thermals are good, but that'll be a big push there. So that's what's going to happen in CS 2020. Not going to be crazy. We'll see updated Razer blades. We'll see updated every manufacturer you can think of. You'll see updated products going into spring, and you'll see some of those updates. So my suggestion to you is don't wait. Like, if you see a really good deal on one of your favorite laptops, the performance difference you get from now until spring of 2020, I don't think is going to be that big of a deal. Like, it's just going to be a 10 to 15% performance increase. So take advantage of those deals. Okay. What else do we got to talk about here? Let's see. Oh, other thing I want to mention to you guys. I've had the Surface Pro X for a little while. I don't know if I'm going to review it. I mean, it's a cool piece of hardware. Like, I love this design. Like, this is hands down, where's the top one? This is hands down like one of my favorite tablets that I've ever seen in terms of like hardware. But man, ARM is just not ready for Windows. It's just not ready. Like, you have to live a very, very specific life. Like, you need to live that office life. Like, only be using Office, only be using that type of stuff, because everything else is just really not optimized for it. Like, you can't use is it 32-bit or 64-bit? You can't use 64-bit applications. So when that happens, it starts chugging. Like you can't use Adobe on this. Like if you wanted to like touch up a photo, that's not possible. You couldn't use, you basically have to live in Internet Explorer. You have to live in Office. You have to live in anything that's made for ARM. As soon as you have to load something up and as soon as this laptop has to use an emulator, the performance suffers significantly. And even with all the efficiency the ARM architecture is supposed to provide, the battery life on this is not as good as some other laptops. Now, I do like the hardware, like having the pen built in, paired with this gorgeous display. Like this feels like it's from the future. This is, I'm sorry, but this is a nicer looking tablet than the iPad. Like from a hardware perspective, this looks nicer than the iPad. But for anyone who's considering this, you really need to know what you're getting yourself into because you might be disappointed. Like you might be really disappointed. If you live the Internet Explorer life and in Office, you can get by, but there'll be situations where like you have to do something that's outside of that environment, and then that's when you're gonna find that frustration. So what I'm hoping is, we'll see a lot more adoption of applications being designed for the ARM architecture. Obviously, I think Apple is gonna have the biggest push for this, and hopefully we'll see a lot of that development happen on Windows too, because I'm sure Microsoft is itching to push to ARM as well and not be so reliant on Intel. So that's why I haven't released a review on this. I don't think I am because it's just going to be a really bad negative review. So I don't see a point. All right. I think that's it for the live stream today. What else do I got here? Talked about, one more thing at CES 2020 that I forgot that might be announced. We might finally see 10th gen H series processors. So that's something that also could go into the 2020 versions of laptops. Let's do this a quick search here. 10th gen H series processors, laptops 2020. Let's see what happens. So that's possibly something that's going to be in upcoming announcements at CES 2020. We might see some of that 10th gen Comet Lake CPUs being announced, which will be nice. But how much of a performance increase is it going to be? Maybe not much from a single core count, not a single core count, from single threaded performance. It'll probably be very reminiscent of what we have right now. But what we will see is more cores. So like the 9750H today is 6 cores. The 107050H will be 8 cores. And then the i9, for example, won't be 8 cores. They'll bump it up to, 10 cores. So I think that's what we're going to see is the 10th series H series processors. So if you're using multi-threaded applications, you will see, let's say, about a 20% performance increase if you decide to go with a unit that has more cores. Like if you're upgrading from an i9 to an i7 next year, you won't see that much of a performance increase. But if you're upgrading from an i7 to an i7 and you're going from 6 to 8 cores, even if it has the same clock speeds from a single threaded standpoint, you'll still have about a 20% performance increase in multi-threaded applications just because you're getting those 2 extra cores. So if you're waiting for those 2 extra cores, then wait till next year. If not, get those deals because they're happening. Casual Techie says, thoughts on Chromebooks, specifically the Pixel Go. The Pixel Go is a great laptop. Like, I like it a lot. It's expensive, though, even for like a more budget version of Google's Chromebook. But you have to understand, like, Google needs to create a high-end Chromebook so that other manufacturers can follow its footsteps and create good products. But even though there's still a couple of great Chromebooks out there, another one that comes to mind is from Asus. They make the Chromebook Flip. Really great Chromebook. It's priced well, it's premium, and it's a great Chromebook if you don't want to spend money on the Pixelbook Go. You have to really love Chromebooks to purchase the Pixelbook Go because it's more expensive than something like the Chromebook Flip or some of the other Chromebooks that you can buy that have very similar specs. If you're buying a Chromebook, I'd rather you buy a Chromebook over an ARM Windows laptop like the Surface Pro X. I just think living in that browser and having access to Android and it running significantly smoother is a better experience than what you have with the ARM architecture on Windows right now. But using it as your daily driver, it really comes down to what exactly you're doing. If you know that you're only going to live in a browser and you need some of that, and you can get by like offsetting it to some of the Android integration, Chromebooks are great, and the Pixelbook Go is a great product. But yeah, just know what you're getting yourself into. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for this live stream. I'm going to do a lightning round right now, answer some of your questions, and then I'm going to close it down, and that'll be it. So the first question comes from, what do we got here? What are your thoughts on cloud gaming on CES 2020? So I think we're going to see a lot of that. I'll probably have some more demos coming out from Microsoft with Project X Cloud, maybe. I don't know. They usually don't do too much gaming stuff at CES, but you can definitely expect Google to have a presence there. Maybe not so much advertising something new, but they might have some stations so that you can try out Stadia. I personally haven't used Stadia yet, but based on the reviews so far, it seems to be a terrible experience. Like, it's still in beta. They never should have released it yet. I don't think we're going to see tons of announcements in terms of it. We might just see a lot of demos of what we know already, because CES has never been like a big gaming platform. D. Phillip, 2019 Helios 300 or Lenovo Legion Y540. So I think the Y540 is a better product, but I would still go for the Helios 300 1660 Ti, just because you're really not going to take advantage of the ray tracing coming out of the 2060. And that's because the performance is not there on a laptop. If it was a desktop, you can get by and get 60 frames per second with an RTX 2060, but not on a laptop. So if the price difference between the Y540 and the 300 is significant, just get the GTX 1660 Ti. Will Apple drop a 14-inch laptop as good as the Mac Pro 16? If so, when do you think? Hope before August 2020. So I don't think they're going to drop another MacBook Pro 15. Those days are over. The 16-inch version of the MacBook Pro is the new 15-inch version of it. That's replaced 15-inch MacBooks. What you will get is new MacBook Pro 13s and updated internals for the MacBook Pro 16. So as I mentioned before earlier in this live stream, you will see MacBook Pro 13s that have similar features from the MacBook Pro. So better speakers, the improved microphone, possibly a 14-inch display, better battery life, scissor switch keyboard, getting rid of those butterfly switches. So that's what you'll have, something reminiscent of that. And if they do an updated MacBook Pro 16 using new processors and GPUs, you'll see a same form factor. You'll just get updated internals and maybe a micro LED display or OLED display based on rumors. What games are you excited for in 2020? Great question, Matt. I don't know. Like, I never keep up with gaming. Like, I only keep up when they come out, unless it's like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna be released in 2020, but super excited for Diablo 4. Super excited for Overwatch 2, but I don't know if they're coming out in 2020. I think they're gonna come out like a couple of years from now. Do you think MacBook Pro 13 base is good value? Base is what? i5, 8 gigabytes, 256? Absolutely. Spend the money on it. Get it over the MacBook Air. You'll thank me later. When do you expect the NVIDIA GeForce 3000 series to launch, and will there be a price drop? Man, that's a good question. It all depends on AMD. Like, it really depends on AMD. Right now, what NVIDIA is doing is they're sitting comfortably. They're ahead of the market. They're ahead of the curve in terms of GPU performance. And all they're doing right now is releasing super variants to stay ahead of AMD. Like, AMD will release their GPU. It'll be on par with, let's say, whatever the equivalent is for NVIDIA, let's say RTX 2070. And then NVIDIA will come out with an RTX 2070 Super to respond, just only to make sure that their cards are faster. So I think we might not see a 3000 series this year. If we do, it'll be the end of the year, not anytime sooner. And I think AMD is going to have to push them to do it. I got a MacBook Pro and it's the best thing, damn laptop I ever owned. Everyone says the same thing. It's a great product. Razer Blade 15 2080 for $359.99 or Asus Zephyrus 2080 for 3,000 CAD. Oof. Good question. Good question. That's a $600 difference plus tax. Canadian products are not cheap. So me personally, oh man, that's tough. Okay, can you give me the exact specs of the Zephyrus you're going for? And is it the Zephyrus S or the Zephyrus M? Because there's a difference. Let me know which one you're choosing. Would you choose a Lenovo S40 or Dell XPS 15? I haven't reviewed the S40, so I can't comment on it. But the Dell XPS 15 I kind of don't recommend too often. I mean, if you are buying the XPS 15, try to keep it as base as possible. I find as soon as you buy the i9, it just can't handle the thermals. Do you think MacBook Pro 13 base is good value? All right, I think I answered that question already. Razer Blade Stealth 13 or Surface Laptop 3? It depends. If you plan on doing any sort of gaming or content creation, then get the Blade 13 just because you have the extra performance. But if you're doing general productivity, I'd rather have the Surface Laptop 3 any day of the week just because of that aspect ratio. It's lighter. I despise the keyboard on the Stealth 13. It's one of the worst keyboards I've ever used. The shift key placement is atrocious. Why are we seeing 1440p 144 sweet spot? So that's a great question. I want to see more 1440p 144 hertz laptops. There's not too many at all. Everyone's going from 1080, skipping 1440p, and then jumping up to 4K, which is kind of disappointing. What else do we have? X1 Carbon or Surface Laptop 3? So it just really depends. The Carbon is, I think, more expensive. I do like the Carbon as well. It's very light, premium laptop. I think I have one here somewhere. It's a great laptop. It's better for business candidates because of the typing experience, and it's a bit more durable. But again, it really comes down to, do you want that aspect ratio or not? So you have to think about that aspect of the purchase. How do you think the RTX 2090 is future-proof? Yeah, I mean, it's future-proof for, until games catch up to it. But you're never going to run it on 4K at 144 hertz. Like, you're always going to be stuck 1080p gaming unless you hook up like a QHD monitor. i5 10th gen or i7 9th gen? It depends what you're doing. It's all relative to what you're doing with the laptop. If you're just browsing the internet, i5 is more than capable. Like, really, you don't need anything more than an i5. If you're developing, you might want to go up to the i7. It just depends on what you're using the laptop for. How would you compare the touchpad between the Apple MacBooks and Surface Laptop 3? Okay, great question. So I still think MacBooks hold the gold standard for touchpads. Like, there's just nothing better out there. But on the Windows side of things, the Surface Laptop 3 is absolutely the closest. It is so good. It's one of the best, actually it is the best, in my opinion, touchpad I've used on a Windows laptop. So hopefully that gives you some context. If you want like almost MacBook Pro accuracy, Surface Laptop line is where you want to be in life. Okay, I think we're good. I think that's good for questions. Okay, guys, I apologize for the initial hiccups we had with the first two live streams, but we finally got it going. I fixed the microphone. I hope this live stream was beneficial to you. Like, let me know in the comment section, in the chat, if this was an educational live stream, and I'll try to continuously do more like this in the future. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon. That would truly help me and notify you when I have upcoming videos, because YouTube is YouTube, and whatever day they're feeling like, they might push it out or not. So hitting that bell icon will help. If you want to get a hold of me, comment section, Discord server, which is in the description down below. You can reach me there. I'll try to come in and answer any of your questions. But please, feedback is everything. So if you have any of it, let me know in the comment section what you'd like to see in the future upcoming live streams. Would you want guests on here? Would you like me to keep this more news related? Would you like me to keep it laptop focused? Would you like me to do something more hands-on? I'm always open to feedback. So yeah, thank you guys for all the support. Thank you guys for being here today with me. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Happy holidays. I'm probably not going to talk to you guys until after Christmas, but before the new year, I think, if I can pull in a live stream for you. But yeah, if I don't, happy holidays, and I hope you guys are safe with your family. And yeah, have a great rest of 2019 and stay safe. Peace.